I also want to extend a very warm welcome to Charles, and thank you, Charles, for spending this time with us today. Charles has been a client of Waystar for a very long time, and he's certainly one of the number one people we want to reach out to discuss the durable and sustainable successes that Baptist has had during their rapid time of growth.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Of course. Baptist has been able to exemplify a number of very deep and passionate, not just mission statements, but also their vision and their values. And I just want to go over those real quick because they resonate not just with us at Waystar, but they seem to resonate very well across the industry as a whole. So the mission of Baptist Health is to demonstrate the love of Christ by providing and coordinating care and improving health in their communities. Their vision is that they lead in a clinical excellence with compassionate care and growth to meet the needs of their patients. And then with the faith-based values, Baptist Health will live out its Christ-centered mission and achieve its vision guided by integrity, respect, compassion, excellence, collaboration, and joy. And I think these just resonate not just with all of us, but especially at Waystar, since they do align very much to our values as well. To give you an idea of Baptist and their scope of their patient care, they have 8 owned hospitals and then 1 managed hospital for a total of 9 there. More than 2,500 licensed beds. Inpatient is over 116,000. Outpatients is well over 1.7 million. Their emergency room visits, 366,000. They perform 1,200 open heart surgeries a year, more than 13,000 births, and have a very, very extensive oncology outpatients with over 150,000. They also have over 1,100 medical group providers and provide over 230,000 urgent express care visits and over 151,000 home care visits. So it's just to give you the idea of the weight that this healthcare system holds. And when you look at it across the region, with 350 community access points, it's not just, the state of Kentucky, but it's also Indiana, Illinois, and across the region. And you can see, the breadth of how embedded Baptist is within the region itself. And as we get moving to our primary speaker, Charles Colvin, I just want to, give a little introduction about him as well. He is the Vice President of Revenue Strategy at Baptist Health. He's been with Baptist Health for 22 years. And in his role, he's provided lots of operational leadership for the managed care and the revenue cycle functions for the growth organization. He did begin his Baptist Health career in 1997 in Lexington, and he served there until 2013 with a variety of roles. During his time at Baptist Health, he supported and consolidated the Baptist Health managed care and the revenue cycle departments and provided leadership through various transitions within the health system. So he's worked on a number of projects that have not just provided value, but have been challenging. And those are the ones that we really want to talk about today, and we'll get into that. But some of those projects include consolidation of Baptist Health Medical Group and the onboarding of newly acquired hospitals and professional providers. Prior to joining Baptist Health, Charles was a Baptist pastor from 1993 to 1997, and he earned his bachelor's degree from Campbellville College and his master's in theology with an emphasis on ethics from Lexington Theological Seminary. He's also got a master's in public health with an emphasis in healthcare administration from Western Kentucky University. So I can't think of a better person to discuss, what you've gone through and what you've been able to accomplish at Baptist. And Charles, your reputation speaks for itself. So I'm really happy to welcome you to this webinar, and I'm excited to get the opportunity to chat with you through it.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to the conversation.
So as we get going, there's a couple of areas that we want to focus on first. I want to talk about the result profile. So as we look at some of the results that Baptist itself has achieved, there's a net denial rate of less than 1%. So we're looking at a 0.7%. Now, the initial denial rate being 5.3%. So the net denial rate being 0.7% is certainly a very impressive number. First pass clean claim rate is at 99.14%. The goal for Baptist was 98%, so as you can see, they've achieved that. The professional claims, the first pass clean claim rate is 99.08. So again, they've exceeded that. And then the institutional side, they are at a 99.71%. So the average of those is the 99.14. But you can see that they're exceeding their goal of 98% in both professional and institutional. Bad debt percent is also less than 1% at 0.7%, and their gross AR days are roughly about 44 days. So as we think about the size of Baptist and the scope of their care and the depth and breadth of their access in the region, when we look at the results profile, I'd like to keep that in mind as we go through and understand the challenges that Charles has solved. So with that, I'll get started into our first round of questions. For our revenue cycle success, that's where I wanted to dive in first, Charles. Can you talk to us through the revenue cycle journey and the successes that Baptist has had along the way?
Okay, certainly. And perhaps a good starting point in talking about that journey is to share with you briefly a little bit about where we have come from as it relates to where we now are and see ourselves in the future. Where we really have become one unified revenue cycle team that really works together very cohesively. Our history was not always quite as straightforward as that. Our system hospitals had a total of, we've had 5 different legacy hospital systems and a total of, I believe, 14 different environments that those systems have been on over the years. We at one point in time had as many as 19 physician revenue cycle systems. Historically, most of our revenue cycle operations were decentralized and controlled locally out of each of our local hospital markets. In 2013, we took some pretty big steps, continuing a journey that had some seeds laid a few years earlier with some decisions to consolidate systems and so forth. But in 2013, we brought together all of our revenue cycle employees around the system and consolidated the operations, keeping people in the markets in which they worked, but operating under a unified leadership structure. Really laying the seeds for us for the go lives that we would then subsequently do onto new technology. In total, it was something on the order of about 1,500 employees within revenue cycle who had operated under multiple historical management structures that we did bring together, the same people in the same places they were, but reporting up through a common management team and really trying to align the people and the workflows together so that we could work well, so that we could work systematically, so that we could work efficiently. And I can't say enough about our people in all this. I feel like we have the best management team that is out there in any organization. I feel like our team works so well together, but we have staff members who are committed to this organization, staff members committed to the patients we served, and this group longed for a structure, a way to work efficiently, a way to have straightforward processes where they could really collaborate to bring this together and work together well. We consolidated several of our hospitals onto a different billing system than they were on in early 2014 because we needed to make some significant changes to be ready for ICD-10. But following almost immediately on the heels of that, we as an organization purchased Epic to be the enterprise system for our organization, and really at that time began working toward getting ready as an organization to move on to Epic. We were in those early years of the consolidated revenue cycle, we still found ourselves coming together. We had a lot of disparate workflows. We did things in a lot of different ways. We had a lot of different technical build behind that. And we really found ourselves at the point that we needed to assess what we had. We needed to assess everything we were doing. And then we needed to determine how to standardize it so that we could move forward as one organization with one build in Epic and our other supporting systems to have a standardized workflow that we could really replicate anywhere within the organization. As we onboarded different facilities onto our Epic EMR, as we acquired facilities, as we employed physicians and brought new practices on, we needed a standardized approach to doing business that was replicable. Waystar, I will note, was a significant partner of ours through this process. When we met with Waystar, when we shared with Waystar the vision for what we wanted to be and the unified revenue cycle that we wanted to have, Waystar became partners at the table with us on helping us to imagine what these optimal workflows could look like and helping us get a build together for clearinghouse functions that integrated well within our Epic functions. One of the big challenges being that we came from an environment where we had so much diversity in the different legacy systems we had, where in some cases we had relatively limited technical capabilities. Waystar partnered with us to begin aligning our legacy data structures in such a way that they could be standardized so that even before we went live on Epic, we could begin moving both build and workflow to look much like it did in a future state with us. the level of support, the level of service, and the innovation that Waystar brought into those conversations was amazing. So really, I know we talk of people, process, and technology as being a cliche, but as we talk about our journey and how we have gotten to where we are, it really was a combination of all three that helped us lay the foundation for something we could optimize for a high level of performance, something that we could standardize and replicate and make sustainable over time. It really was bringing together the right people, a fabulous team of amazing staff, and really strong managers who worked well together. It was about developing these processes that were well thought out and highly standardized, and then it was about having the right technology, both in terms of the EMR, in terms of our clearinghouse, in terms of the support functions to be able to pull this together and make it sustainable.
I love what you said there, Charles, beyond the support, the service, and innovation, but the people, the process, and the technology. And I've got to give you a ton of credit on that, too, for recognizing the skill set and the willingness of your team and really praising that and lifting them up so that they can meet the needs of what you were looking for. As we move on, one of the things I want to ask is as we think of the cost to collect and how the payments have kind of shifted between your commercial payers to patient payments, what are the key areas that you focused on to improve cost to collect?
Okay. And I'm glad we're talking about this one, Roxana, because cost to collect is something that is important to us and something that we strive to become ever more efficient at doing. I'm very pleased with the revenue cycle metrics, with the outcomes metrics that we are achieving of getting accurate payments, but we know that every one of us in the healthcare industry is living in an era in which the reimbursement climate is becoming more difficult. That there is increased pressure from governmental payers to consider budgetary considerations. Employers and patients are finding themselves burdened by the cost of health care, and the rate of growth in reimbursement rates and so forth that the industry has experienced in the past is not going to be our future. And just like any other industry, we find ourselves trying to focus on how we can be more efficient. Part of how we can be more efficient is by taking the wonderful team that we have and enabling them to do their work in a fashion where without working harder, but by us helping them work more efficiently and with more targeted focuses on outcomes, we can deliver more results using existing resources. To that end, we have actually done a number of things over the years with our revenue cycle consolidation. One of the big ones we have done, I consider not just a cost to collect opportunity, but really a patient experience opportunity. And that is that we were able to consolidate our patient billing related customer service together into a unified department. Historically, patients would have to call different phone numbers for different legacy EMR systems. Patients would have to call different phone numbers about our employed medical group claims, but sometimes multiple different numbers for the different medical group providers. We created a centralized customer service center located in Madisonville, Kentucky, that they actually occupy a space that formerly was a call center for a major credit card company in order to provide a excellent customer service experience, a high-quality customer service experience for our patients, but in a one-call environment where the person who answered the phone could help support the patient with their questions about all bills that they had with Baptist. And we were able to also consolidate the billing itself together so that a customer could receive a single statement from us for any services provided at all our hospitals and by our employed physicians. This actually helped us achieve cost savings because it was more efficient to do this work in one place at one time than it was to have multiple separate centers, to be sending patients multiple separate statements. But it also made the experience much better for the customer to be able to make one call or even to use web-based self-service tools to address their concerns, their questions, to seek financial assistance, to pay a bill. It was a streamlined experience that saved money. Closely related to that, historically, like most organizations, we had used an early out vendor, and I will say we used an early out vendor that we were well pleased with, and a company that remains a vendor of ours in other capacities. But we felt like, along with our unified customer service experience, we wanted to be able to service our patients' accounts and have Baptist staff be the voice that patients heard when we needed to make telephone calls about collections and how to help them with bills in order, again, to provide a good customer service experience, but also in order to achieve savings in cost. And we were able to significantly reduce our operating costs by bringing these services in-house. What I don't know that we fully anticipated at the time was that as we would do this, we actually saw a significant increase in our patient collections, and something I think that's gone a little bit against the norm of what others in the healthcare sector may be experiencing. We have in recent years been year over year having more luck in collecting patient balances that are outstanding after the time of service, and better results than we have in prior years. Our overall collection rates from patients, we've looked at some various external benchmarks, and we are collecting at a top quartile level of performance from patients. Waystar actually has been a fabulous partner with us in that regard as well, because we were able to implement a predictive analytics tool that Waystar had that helped us target the outbound phone calls and messaging that we used with our customers to really focus the calls on those customers who were the ones who were likely to choose to pay their bills, the ones who really wanted to pay their bills, but also those subsets of customers that the call had the most potential of being helpful in moving that conversation along. I have to say that I found when we were presented this opportunity by Waystar, I found it intriguing. I was not sure what I thought of the concept, but the evidence we saw suggested it worked. I had modest expectations for what it would actually generate for us when we put it into place. I was pleasantly surprised with a result that significantly exceeded our expectations from that. So that one has really also been a big help for us on cost to collect. One of the things we have done that has both positively impacted our cost to collect, but also very positively in pretty direct fashion impacted our denial rate has been to really beef up the work that we are doing with upfront financial clearance with patients, and specifically assuring that we have the correct insurance on file, that we have the proper authorizations in place we need as a result of having the correct insurance. And our organization has for a number of years in parts of the organization used Waystar's eligibility tools, but as we went live on Epic, we really decided that we wanted to take the way we as an organization do eligibility to an entirely different level. So we were able to partner with Waystar to take the eligibility tools and integrate those tools into our Epic build in such a way that from a user experience perspective, the end user perceives they're doing work within Epic, even though what they actually have is a full integration of Waystar's eligibility tools. We then combined the capabilities of our Epic system to write rules and handling logic around the responses that came back, so that we have been able to take our eligibility and increase our verified transaction rate to above the 99% mark. We don't just receive the eligibility transactions back, but we actually apply rules against those transactions. And if there is a mismatch, that mismatch has to be resolved typically at the point of registration, but even if not at the point of registration, via edit reports and other options, so that discrepancy is resolved before the claim goes out the door. By us being able to get everything right, for us to be able to scrub the details of the eligibility transaction from the very time of pre-registration or registration, and address the mismatches, even if it's transposed digits or something similar, that in turn has all sorts of downstream impacts to us of allowing us to assure we have the correct authorization in place, but also contributing to that clean claim rate to assure that in automated fashion we can get a payable claim out the door to the right payer the first time we try. And it has been a huge help for us. By doing that, it has meant that we have been able to make our business office operations also leaner over time, because we just simply don't have to have the number of people in place doing the rework or doing the appeals of preventable denials. We take our eligibility transactions as a side note and have also been able to do some robust calculations as it relates to estimating patient liability. And so, like most organizations, we have been increasingly focused on how we can optimize our point of service collections, how we can get our estimates right, not just for the sake of collection and cash flow rates, but also to provide good, meaningful information to our patients in the interest of good customer service. From there, as we flow through the revenue cycle, getting claims management right was also an important area for us as we sought to improve our cost to collect, but both from better collections as well as from more efficient and hence less costly processes. And having strong edits within our systems was important to us. Waystar, we shopped for clearinghouses a number of years ago, and one of the things that we had been impressed by Waystar, and this precedes our Epic Go Live, so much what was the quality of the edits that Waystar has and how responsive Waystar is to the healthcare environment of quickly identifying new issues and trends and quickly getting new edits in place. And that was a selling tool for us even as we moved to our consolidated EMR on Waystar as a clearinghouse. As we moved to the consolidated EMR, however, we wanted not just to benefit from the edits, but we wanted to benefit from the edits in a way that was very efficient for our billers from a workflow perspective. So again, we were able to partner with Waystar in order to actually take their content in the form of these edits back, also to take rejection reports and other things that affect a claim, and from an end-user perspective, be able to build it in our EMR so that the vast majority of our billers, even though they may be using services on a Waystar platform, to them it's a single login and it looks like they are, feels, acts like they are working within the EMR itself. And that has just made these processes work better. It has helped the clean claim rate. It has helped the denial rate. All that comes back to us in the form not only of increased collections, but of allowing us to make the workflows more efficient. All this is what has come together to help us have our very low initial denial rates. I believe 5.3% was that last number we pulled, and combined with a robust and standardized denial appeal process to be able to achieve a low net denial rate. I do want to shift from the technology a second to talk about beyond technology. It has taken us having a really robust denial and appeal management program in order to really get these rates to the level they are currently at. We had a terrific denial rate of just a little over 1% as we went live on Epic. We have been able, even in an era when payers are denying more claims year over year globally, and when we look at benchmarks, we have been able to reduce that rate each year from there. And I'll really give a lot of attribution to that to our Revenue Integrity Director, as well as to the team who continuously take the information of what they're getting back from denials, who use that information to determine where do we need to provide increased front-end education, where do we need to build edits on the front end, where do we need to build processes, how do we need to revamp and tweak how we do denial management and our write-off processes and so forth, to learn from this information to become better all the time. Having all these parts in place, also hand in hand with this, is assuring that we have accurate charges, assuring that we get the right claim out the door the first time. Because even if it passes edits, we all know we cannot have a clean claim if the claim is missing charges, or actually probably even more concerning to us if our claim has incorrect charges. It is critical to us that the claims we get out the door to our payers be accurate and be compliant. And so we also have put in place a number of processes to help us with assuring our charge accuracy in terms of having nurse auditor programs, but also in terms of having tools such as some of Waystar's predictive analytic tools that, for example, among other things, help us identify areas where we have a hospital claim and a physician claim going out the door, and the charges seem out of sync with each other, to help bring that to attention, because while there can be differences in billing rules on both sides, if there is a difference, it is an area we at least need to check to validate that both are accurate. So having all those tools in place really does help us get the clean claim out the door the first time, and helps us minimize the amount of audit activity we have to deal with later, helps us minimize the rebilling that we have to do later, and so forth. And I talked about statements a little bit already as I talked about how we consolidated our patient and hospital billing together for a good customer experience and to reduce mailing cost. I will reiterate on that, though, that Waystar, again, has been a great partner with us, because beyond what some may think of as core clearinghouse services, Waystar is also our statement vendor, and Waystar helped us with designing a good patient-friendly statement for us, helped us identify opportunities to minimize the number of pages while covering all the things that we needed to do from a compliance and messaging standard to our patients. And then one of the neat things that I like, helped us design it in such a way that we could generate our own statements within our own EMR and then provide them to Waystar for mailing purposes. But by doing it out of our EMR, it actually allows our customer service personnel to be able, within the EMR, to see the exact image of the very statement that our patient received in the mail. And I think we all know from our own experiences over the years with customer service conversations how frustrating it could be when what we as a customer is seeing is different than what the customer service personnel trying to help us sees. It really does help make those calls go more smoothly, which again translates to efficiency. It also translates to a better patient experience.
Thank you so much for that, Charles. One thing I want to call out that I heard as a common theme in both responses was people, process, and technology. So I hear it in both responses that you've given so far, and I just wanted to call that out because one of the things you mentioned is the thought out standardization, and as you repeat the people and process and technology, that is one of those thought out standardized methodologies that you do seem to be following. The other thing I wanted to point out too is, you mentioned cost to collect and that you really transformed that into a unified patient service experience. And I want to really honor the fact that I see that is something that comes from your shared vision, that Baptist Health will lead in clinical excellence, compassionate care, and growth to meet the needs of our patients. So those were two big things that I really got from and resonated with me from your response. So I wanted to make sure that I called those out specifically.
Thank you.
Now our next question, again, is related to the revenue cycle success, and you alluded to a lot of success with the EHR. Specifically, your EHR is Epic. What benefits do you see from surrounding and supplementing your Epic integration through full integration with the revenue cycle into the EHR?
When we deployed historically a lot of different workflow tools to our end users, I think it made it hard for them to do their job. One, just simply from the hassle of having to remember multiple systems, multiple logins, log in to each separate system, disrupt the workflow. It was our goal with our EHR implementation to have as seamless of user experience as we possibly could. It was really our objective that for our users to be able to do their work in one place. And by doing the work in one place, not only do we take away the need for all those other logins, but it also allows for us to control, and perhaps control is too strong a word, but for us to guide and prompt the workflow process. By being able to keep what an end user does within the EMR, it allows us to be very intentional about standardizing workflows, creating the normal patterns through which people work, and that in turn helps us. It just makes it easier for staff to do work. It also allows us to better track staff work and metrics and production, in order for us to be able to give folks meaningful coaching and feedback. It's kind of hard when our hypothetical Jim and Sally or Charles and Roxana or whoever are doing their work in different fashions and using different tools that are outside of the umbrella of what we control, for us to be able to monitor, but for us to be able to understand what they're doing, so that when Charles is struggling with something that's going well for Roxana, that if we don't have enough information on the way he's doing his work, what's different, we can't help him in the same way. So I see a lot of benefit to that. I see a lot of benefit for us having one system of record, if you will, or perhaps in a more common way of stating it, one source of truth. I am not going to lay claim myself to being an expert user at all these things that our team does, but it is useful for me when I'm dealing with perhaps an escalated customer service issue, when I'm investigating an issue, when I'm trying to help someone. It's helpful for me to be able to go into a single record and see all the different pieces and parts of what's going on in one place. All this has really allowed us to automate a lot of things, has really allowed us to eliminate a lot of manual processes. It has also allowed us to mitigate for the uncertainty that comes when we teach a user, for example, how to use a certain website, and all of a sudden 2 a.m. an ED user is trying to use that website, and the website has completely changed and the user doesn't know what they're doing. By us being able to control the experience, to know upgrade and change cycles, it just makes all that more efficient. And of course, as I said, it just makes it easier for an end user. If I can sign in one place and get to work, it's much faster for me to be able to go about doing my job. It makes it much easier for us to train new employees and so forth.
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I know it's something that, across the industry surrounding and supplementing the revenue cycle side of an EHR is it's a benefit, and it's something that a lot of our clients are looking to do. So I appreciate your feedback there. Our next set of questions is I want to turn and focus more on the implementation and the support side. Now, Baptist has had new facilities added to their EHR this year. How would you describe the planning and the communication and execution of that implementation?
Okay. So we continue to operate with a premise that we are going to have a single standardized build of our EHR. With that said, there definitely are differences. There are differences in terms of local facility operations on the scope of services, and in some cases just physical structure and layout and other fundamentals. In the case of the most recent facility that we have onboarded to the EHR, a different state that has a different set of regulatory environment and requirements in some cases. So what we do is we send in both IT as well as operational teams, and we really try to do a deep dive assessment to understand all the needs and workflows within each entity and understand it in depth. Then what we have done as we do this is we have tried to go ahead and make workflow changes or clearinghouse changes as the case may be, but to begin aligning workflows in a legacy environment to be as close to what they could be like in our Epic EHR as possible prior to go live. It takes out the variability of the things that we need to monitor and train for and work through as we do a go live onto the EHR by solving certain problems in advance, by getting staff accustomed to working a certain way in advance. So I know we're getting a little tight on time, but that's the fundamental secret at play here.
I appreciate that. So as far as the scalability in your recent revenue cycle changes, can you discuss maybe some of the support of managing claim edits and standardization? I know that feeds right into people, process, and technology.
Because we have built our EHR out as being a single environment, we do not have different builds for different facilities. Other than things that may need a little tweak here or there. It's a single database. Because we have standardized the workflows and also standardized the reporting accountabilities, to a large degree, again, recognizing the need for local customization, to a large degree, we have created a well-functioning solution that can plug into new environments and work smoothly. The devil's in the details of the last mile of getting things dialed in, but I think having a good working standard and largely sticking to it has been one of the big keys of our successes.
And you mentioned very briefly there too the reporting side. How has the vendor reporting improved the management of your payment posting process?
So by having all these legacy systems, I believe I said 14 as I was counting it up, hospital environments and 19 physician environments. We historically had remittances coming to lots of different addresses and through different electronic means. And we had the challenge of taking remittances that had transactions where a payer would combine transactions for multiple different entities onto a single remit and then send that remittance to one of our addresses. One of the things that Waystar was a fabulous partner with us on that was being able to help us enroll with our payers to get all of those transactions redirected to us through Waystar, and then in turn working with us under what I believe you call the rebatcher logic, but allowing us to take those remittances and to parse them out to the different systems where they went. There was some workflow and reporting that went with that to assure that from a cash accounting perspective, et cetera, we also got the right information in the right place to reconcile that. But that was a huge key to success in these various and sundry go-lives, and of course remains a key to success as we try to work on the wind down of some of these legacy systems.
Very, and you're right. That's what we reference that as a rebatcher. So I'm going to go ahead and combine the last two since they are so closely related. what distinguishes your vendor support and services? And part of that is what level of responsiveness are you looking for from a revenue cycle vendor? So support and services and responsiveness.
So Roxanne, I certainly, I think we as an organization like to consider ourselves to be easy to work with. And so we look for partnerships. We look for people that we can find a symbiotic relationship and work well together. With that said, while we seek that type of collaboration, we also are an organization that has very high expectations. We are seeking a high level of performance. We are seeking a level of flexibility, a level of responsiveness. And that has been one of the terrific things about working with Waystar as a partner. I have never worked with a vendor, and I've said this in a lot of contexts, and certainly not a vendor in the technology space that has the level of commitment that Waystar has to reinventing the wheel as the need may be, to very quickly and on the fly adapt the solution to be able to meet the problems we're facing. The level of responsiveness has been phenomenal. It is something that we expect and we get from all of our vendor partners. But in the case of Waystar, to have a technology company that has such a level of scale and complexity to be able to respond with the responsiveness we need. I once had a situation where I made a phone call at 7:30 a.m. to Waystar because of a very unique problem that we had a custom option to work around the issue we were experiencing in place before 9 o'clock that morning. And that is just not the way the relationship typically works through the bureaucracy and processes of most organizations.
We absolutely, and this comes from not just myself, but your support team here at Waystar is we honestly value your partnership. It's a very valuable relationship to us from a personal perspective, and I absolutely concur with your initial statement that you guys are very, very easy to work with. And it's because of that understanding and that true partnership that we have that I'll say, from my perspective, really makes that relationship a fantastic give and take. And you push us in the right ways to be the right company for you as well. And so we appreciate you for that. Given that we are just a few minutes away from time, I am going to move on to our Q&A session. I know we've got a ton of questions that have come in. So I'm going to start. We have one that says, can we elaborate on the predictive analytics? How used in charge capture versus billing versus early out? Is it a single platform of analytics, an overarching platform, or individual models?
Okay, and I'm not sure if I am the best person to field that question in the sense that I am not a technical user, but what I can tell you about the fundamental nature of the predictive analytics product of Waystar's that we are using is that we were able to create a series of feeds, extracts out of our EMR that provide data to Waystar, who in turn takes that data and mines that data from a machine learning perspective to look for patterns within the data. And the area where, I think we have achieved our greatest successes has definitely been on the self-pay collections part of being able to mine the data for payment patterns, to be able to determine and to do so without even needing to get a credit score on individual users, the accounts where different types of approaches to communicating with patients will be the most helpful in terms of patient collection. There are some other modules of Waystar that we also have in place, and I'm sure, Roxana, your team could talk with them more about that in detail. Being able to compare the professional and hospital charges and look for differences in coding, it has also been an area of some value for us, because we want to assure they're right and that they're in sync, or that we understand why there is a coding guideline related reason for a difference.
And to just add to your point, we do pride ourselves in using not just predictive analytics, but machine learning and pushing the boundaries of predictive analytics, and even trying to take those further as we look towards prescriptive and other advances in machine learning themselves. So we do have a number of solutions that utilize predictive analytics and machine learning. Specifically, charge capture is one of them. As Charles, you also mentioned, our propensity to pay. So, we have an analytic that determines the how much, how likely, and how soon a patient is likely to pay, and that being used up front in the front of the revenue cycle, like you mentioned, Charles, is something that does have a lot of value. I'm going to keep going on our questions here. Can you define how you calculate clean claim rate? And this is something that we had talked about early, Charles.
Yeah, and that is actually fairly easy because I don't want to create my own definition and have something that's non-standard that I can't compare with other users. So we actually rely on the clean claim rate that is reported back to us from Waystar, and I believe we determined that was the percentage of claims. I believe it was from the submission we made of the original claim to Waystar to the point of initial acceptance by the clearinghouse, that the claim comes back to us without failing either Waystar's edits or the initial edits that the clearinghouse has, I believe, is what we determined as we talked about that. Correct, Roxana?
Right, and that's what we decided as the first pass clean claim rate, where it can go out the door without a human touch and be sent to the payer and to the EDI. The next one we have is very similar. What is a clean claim to your system? What does it mean? Does that mean it's initially accepted by your team or by the payer, and how many of those are denied later?
Well, so we are achieving over a 99% clean claim rate. We have the 5.3% initial denial rate from the third-party payer. And then, of course, in dollar terms, I don't know that I have the stat in claim terms, but in dollar terms, we are ultimately recouping to the point that our net write-off rate is about 0.7%.
The follow-up to that is that what is the time frame for that too? Within 90 days, 1 year, 3 years?
We do the tracking of the net denial rate within a separate reporting system we have. It's done in a standardized fashion. We actually take the remittances. We identify our denials by the remittances that come back to us via Waystar into our EMR system based on a CART code that signifies a denial. We then, in turn, match that information up against the expected claim payment on the system, which is a relatively new capability that we have with our current EMR, but we do some additional processing of that. What we actually end up looking at over time is, then we keep the balance on AR until such point in time as there is a final decision that the account is uncollectible. Usually that's because all levels of an appeal process have been exhausted. We're pretty diligent before we write off an account. But then that write-off over time of net reimbursable charges is what we track and record against current revenue.
Very nice. The next question we have here is, does Baptist use both Epic PB and Epic HB?
Yes, we do.
So physician bill and hospital bill, yeah. Next one is, in your unified structure, where you had local resources at each entity, how did you allocate the work? What was the management structure?
Historically, every facility had its own revenue cycle teams. In today's state, services are functionally aligned, and so staff may be located in a location somewhere, but all workflows outside of registration workflows, I guess I should say, the vast majority of workflows are being done from an enterprise perspective and are aligned by function or by another type of logic that makes sense. For example, people specializing in a certain payer or a certain type of denial, et cetera.
And what were the main drivers in your extremely low bad debt percentage?
Well, I would like to think that our upfront collections processes have helped make an impact, but I really think that probably more than anything, we have benefited from having the single statement and bringing the early out processes in-house. And I just think we've got the right team doing that, and I believe with the help of predictive analytics, as well as what our EMR itself can do for us, we've got the right tools in place.
Gotcha. And the next one I have here is, what product do you use for eligibility verification?
We use Waystar's eligibility tool, again, embedded within our Epic system.
Awesome. And this one, I'm going to take this one as our final one. The unanswered questions we will answer offline, but I think this is a great one to close out on. And so, Charles, having a very healthy revenue cycle currently, what are your next initiatives to achieve?
I guess the thing that I would say,
plan to conquer the world.
You know, the thing that I would say is, one, we've been doing a lot of celebration with our team about what they've done for us to get us to where we are. We cannot be complacent within this. The climate is evolving too rapidly. The payers are making too many changes to which we have to adapt. It is a tough climate. We are in the process of continuous reevaluation and re-engineering and tweaking of every workflow. And it is not an option for us to throw resources at the problems we face. We need to be very mindful of that cost to collect. And so just because we have a new edit, just because we have a new payer policy we have to respond to, does not mean we can instantly run out and justify additional FTEs. So when we face these challenges, we find ourselves continuously coming back to the table of what is it within what we can do, we can streamline, we can optimize to make work more efficiently, make work better for the future. I would not define what we are currently planning and working on as anything that anyone would describe as necessarily groundbreaking or earth-shaking. It is, but we are continuously going back to the table to find those incremental improvements we can do to continuously make it better and to continuously respond to the challenges we face.
That's very well said. If you don't mind, Charles, I'd really like to bring up something that you've mentioned to me just in our conversations, and it seems to fall in line with exactly what you said. Is when we talk about our payer relationships, that they're not our adversaries, and that seems to fall in line with a lot of what you're saying, is that, you don't necessarily want to go to an FTE just to solve for a problem, but that really, reaching across to the payer to build that relationship and not looking at the payer as an adversary has been one of the keys to the successes as well. Would you agree? Or did I say that as well, as eloquently as you had said that previously?
Yeah, and in my current role, I now have responsibilities related to managed care as well as to revenue cycle, and sometimes it feels very adversarial how we interact with the payers. I know that all of us in the provider community at times feel like that we are playing a cat and mouse game, and that we are jumping through just more and more hoops that maybe are designed to trip us up, so that someone can find a reason not to pay us for a service we've done. And in some cases, I think that is a real problem. One of the things we have done, though, is to really also try to take our dialogue with the payers to a different level. And when we run into these issues, we try to address them directly, not just in the form of perhaps a rate increase request, but also in the form of troubleshooting conversations. And one of the things we find is, yes, payers themselves hire a lot of vendors. Payers themselves take on a lot of new policies in order to try to save money. But the payers are also keenly aware that all of those things they do have a cost, and that sometimes the cost affects the collaboration that they have with their provider partners in a negative manner as well. We've tended to find on some of our bigger issues that when we are able to talk through it, we're able to work together and we're able to find solutions that help us address some of these issues by making a process that perhaps is cumbersome for both entities more streamlined for both entities, because none of us benefit from increasing the total cost of doing business in healthcare by adding to the administrative workload in a way that does not improve quality, patient outcomes, or generate a true savings. And so the dialogues we've been having with payers on this have been good and have gotten us some meaningful results.
That's great to hear, because I that's one of the things that I really enjoy hearing from Baptist is the different tactics that you guys have made. Charles, I really want to thank you for taking this time and taking a little more than what we even scheduled to talk through and to talk with everybody on the phone and answer questions and just out of your heart to help everyone and bring everybody along into the same realm of success that you've had. So thank you so much for taking this opportunity. It's been a pleasure, and with that, I'll hand it over to the Beckers team, to close out.
Thanks, Roxana.
Thank you so much, Roxana. And I do want to once again thank Charles for his excellent presentation today and for answering everyone's questions. I would also like to thank Waystar for sponsoring today's webinar. So please enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having you join us for future webinars.